So today, we'll be going over the final webinar of our short series here. Julia will now brief you on what we'll be covering.
Okay, so for today we're going to be covering those key skills to close sales, also a deeper look at KiSP basics and improving scene builder skills, and this is kind of geared towards creating those visuals with kits. So just to recap our past webinars, in part 1 we talked about bounding boxes and that snap to collision prevention. Part 2 was advanced search and using those gestures for the multi-select. And then part 3 was creating those quick sheets and then configuring price. So you can find all those on our Knowledge Center and also our YouTube channel. If you missed out or want to watch it again, you can definitely check out those recordings.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Julia. So it's critical that we prepare ourselves for every sales meeting. Now, this short webinar series that we created, which concludes today, was a guide to understanding how to use kits when you're client-facing. So understanding those key features that will allow you to efficiently find solutions using kits. Knowing how kits will work for you will get you closer to closing those sales quickly. So let's go ahead and begin. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my app. And here is the wonderful layout that we've created in the last couple of weeks. All right. So today's final part to the series is going to be creating those visuals that we need to create for our client. The type of perspectives we need to create, how to position these visuals, as well as how to enhance them. Okay. Now, the first thing you need to understand, and this is always the key factor to any sales success, is product knowledge. Every webinar I started off mentioning this, product knowledge is key, and it's the #1 thing that will allow you to use kits successfully. Okay, so there's various ways to using kits, to learning more about the product and figuring out how it works. So when you bring into Scene Builder, you can actually visit the last few webinars that we created, the videos, watch those, and I go through some steps on how to utilize kits to using it to understanding the manufacturer's product. Okay, what we'll be looking at today is rendering. So here you can see that we now have our wonderful layout. And what I want to do is I want to create that visual first. But you can see I have a double, basically a double layout of the same type of furniture set. So this is where it's important to understanding the client's scope. What is important for the client? What was the reason why they hired us to create these layouts? This is what we always got to figure out. When it comes down to it, how to actually present the layout that we've now created. So there's a few things that you can do, and if you tap on HD Render, you can see that we have all these different options. Now, the idea of this is that we're working with the client. We are client-facing, so we want to do something that's quick and that is straight to the point. So all these different rendering options will get you certain qualities and will take certain rendering times. Obviously, the first option, good quality fast, is the fastest option, and this is what we always say to use whenever you're client-facing. Now, the quality may be not as great as the best quality, but you still will be able to produce a nice HD rendering visual that you need to create, and this rendering will probably take anywhere between 15 to 30 seconds. Okay, when you get into the better quality, that'll take a little bit longer. You're probably looking into 5 minutes, but you're going to get a little bit of better shade and shadow. And then once you're into best quality, depending on the intricacy of the project, that means how large the actual project is. That can take you anywhere between, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I have created an 8,000 square foot project on this using this tool, and that rendering time took me roughly about 45 minutes. So you can understand that depending on your rendering time, will greatly differ depending on the size of your project. Okay. Now we also have line drawing, and that will take merely a couple of seconds. Now, the reason why we've provided this is to give you certain options. Line drawings are great whenever you want to show a client what the layout may look like without having the distraction of all the finishes and anything else that's in the scene. Here you can just create simple line drawings with that. What I like to use a line drawing for, and this is what I normally do with every project, is I like to go into Plan View, and I like to maximize my layout to filling the iPad frame as best as possible. Then I'll go into HD Render, and then I'll create that line drawing. And the reason why I do this is I can create a nice floor plan view of what the actual project may look like. Okay, and once that's done, I'm going to save it to my photo library. So now I have a copy of the floor plan of this. Now again, we don't have dimensions on here. You can certainly add those afterwards, but the idea of this tool is that again, we're creating the visual. This just gives the client a better understanding of what the layout looks like from above, as well as any kind of circulation points that you may want to touch upon. Okay. Now the next thing is you'd have to create that key rendering, and this is where it's best understanding what the client's focus is on. Now it could be a slew of different things. It could be showing what the actual layout looks like from the staff perspective view, showing what it looks like to the overall office view, which may be something like this. Or, again, it could be an idea of showing what the rendering may look like as a tandem, showing both sides. These are all different things that you'd have to explore and understand based on the client scope so that you can position your rendering as best as possible to create that rendering. So I'm going to go ahead and fire off a rendering right now. And we're going to use the first option, which is the good quality. Okay, and again, you can see here that it'll take anywhere between 10 to 15 seconds to generate. And what we get is an HD image that has shade and shadow. All right, so this gives a little bit a better definition to the actual space. Now again, it's against white space, so this is where we'll take it to the next step, which is understanding how to enhance your project, and also knowing how to enhance it with the given time that you have in front of your client. Okay, so we do have rendering options that you can, kits options that you can add to your renderings, such as adding environments in the KiSP catalog. Now, you may not have enough time to add both, so it's best to understand which option would work best for you. So the first one we're going to explore is creating an environment. You can create environments in numerous ways. You can create it using the KiSP catalog architectural items, or you can simply use it by including an environment by tapping on HD Render, tapping on Include Environment, and here you can take a photo of the actual space, or you can use the samples. Today I'm going to go through using the samples in case you want to know how to use the iPad camera to take that augmented reality photo to use your layout in there. You can actually visit our Knowledge Center. We have quite a few videos on how to do that. But today what we're going to do is we're going to quickly use one of our samples here. So I'm going to go tap on Samples. And you can see that we have a few different options in terms of these sample environments that we've created for this. Now, it's best to choose the one that best fits your client space. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to reflect exactly what your client space looks like, merely what the layout is actually going to look like when it's confined within 4 walls. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and use the loft option here. Now I can go ahead and tap on Use, and you can see my layout now is in the space. Now, how do I position this? Now, the white floor that you see on there is the actual grid that we've created. Now, that's that 30 feet. That is a 30-foot by 30-foot grid. If I go to my project settings, I can see that my grid size is 30 feet by 30 feet. So that is what I actually see on the floor. Now, it's important to keep this while you're actually setting up your rendering, because what you can actually do is you can use the border of that floor grid and align it with your perspective line. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this border of the actual floor grid here, and I'm lining it up with the wall. Okay, and the reason why that's important is because it's going to allow me to position it correctly. Now, there's a few things that you can actually do here. If I go back to 3D view, it's just right over here, And then actually, let's go into plan view. What I can do is I can position my layout according to the actual squares on my floor grid. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do a select all. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have roughly about 4 feet between my layout and the actual wall itself. So I'm going to place it there, and you can see that I have 4 feet because I can count 4 squares. Everything is okay. I don't necessarily have to look at the length because of the sample environment. So now when I go back into the photo view, I can now follow the wall line and position the foregrid line against that. So now I know that I'm following the correct perspective of the actual image itself. So once I'm satisfied with that, I can go back into my project settings, tap on floor grid, turn it off so I can look at the space sitting on the actual sample floor. Okay, and I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on HD render, and we're going to create a quick rendering of that. So you can see there are a few things that you have to understand when you're setting up your environment. Now, not always are you going to be able to use that floor grid. Sometimes you're just going to guesstimate how it looks and position it accordingly. But again, what I always like to do is I always like to position the layout against the floor grid and then place it so that it makes sense once I place it into the actual sample environment. This way I get a clear image of the actual layout and the sample environment. And to me, that looks absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and save that to my photo library so I have an example of that. Okay. Now, another thing that you can do, and I'm going to go back into include environment, is you can also set the environment's scale. In this case, even though we didn't create this environment, I can certainly go into calibrate, and I can calibrate the scale of the actual image so that it brings in the furniture layout that I've created to scale according to what the actual site scale is. So here what I'm going to say is I'm going to say that the wall roughly underneath the black piping here is going to be, let's say, 8 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and find 8 feet right there. And then I'm going to take my 3D measuring tape. I'm going to place it at the corner or between the actual floor line and the wall line. And then I'm going to use my rotate function to rotate that 3D measuring tape so it also is aligned with the wall. And then I'm going to use my scaler on the right-hand side to scale that accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to scale that up to hit the underside of the piping, which is right about there. And I'm going to say that is roughly 8 feet. I'm satisfied with that, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on Done. And now when I tap on Use, it will bring in my floor, my layout to scale according to the scale that I've just created. Here we've brought the floor grid back on, so then I can now scale this accordingly. And you can see that because of the scale, it actually increased the size of the actual layout. And if that's the case, what you can do is you can always go into your environments again, go back into the sample environments. And the first one I used was a 2,500 square foot space. Here I'm going to use the 5,000 square foot space. Again, I'm going to calibrate the same way as I did before, which was 8 feet. And let's bring the measuring scaler close to the wall there. Okay, just going to rotate it. There we go. And now I'm going to scale it as best as possible to the underside of that black piping. Tap on Done, tap on Use. And now I'm going to use a floor grid to align my layout into the space. Okay, so there I have it. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm going to go ahead and create a rendering of that. So now what I've done is I've created this layout to scale according to the sample environment that I've used. Again, you can use those same scales, that same scaler with the photo environment as well. It acts the same way. Now, once that's created, I'm going to save it to my photo library. And you can see I may have additional space here. So a good tip is if you want to actually reduce some of that space, what I'd like to do is go into my photo library, into my iPad photo library. I can go right into the actual space, and in this case, I can edit it by using the iPad's native editing software, and I can now scale this accordingly. Okay. Once I tap on Done, you can now see that that image looks great. Okay, so there's a few things that you can do here. Other than just using kits, you can use the iPad's native editing system, photo editing system, to help edit your photos after you've produced them. All right, so let's go back into kits. And now what I want to do is I want to look at the second option, which is the KOE catalog. Okay, so again, it really is up to you how you want to utilize your options here. If you can't do both, if you're not used to actually doing both, then what I would suggest is understand what makes more sense for you to include to enhance your renderings, whether it's including that environment or whether it's actually creating a scene that has some of the KOE catalog items, such as people, plants, office equipment, etc. Okay. So the KOE catalog, if you're new to it, is a catalog that we created. And if you go to your Add Item menu, and if you've already previously synced it to your iPad, you could find it under the Kits Design Collection. So once you go into Kits Design Collection, you have here the option of the Kits Office Environment Elements, that's the KOE catalog, as well as the KOT catalog, which allows you to add text like numbers and letters. Okay. Today we're going to explore the KOE catalog, and here you have options of including architectural elements, office elements, plants, people, as well as ceilings. Now the ceilings will come in at a later point when we introduce the next update to kits. So stay tuned for that. But what I like to do is I always like to have my top 5 ready. Now these are the top 5 items that I'll utilize whenever I'm working on a project, especially if I'm client-facing, because these are my go-to items. Now this varies depending on the type of project that I'm working on. So if it's a meeting space, the top 5 items will differ from, let's say, an office space. Now, if the office space is open collaborative, if it's private office, all the different room types, my top 5 may differ from those as well. Okay, so the best thing to do is explore this catalog, understand what your top 5 are depending on the project that you're working on, and making sure that whenever you're client-facing and you're working on these projects, these are the items that you go to enhance your project. Okay, so the first thing I like to add for mine, especially if I have desks, is some computers. So I'm going to go into Equipment, and I'm going to go into and choose my iMac. I'm going to place it on one of the areas here. And you can see that when it comes in, it doesn't come aligned to the actual work surface. Okay, so we can adjust that at a later point, or if you want, you can quickly do that by using your Item Move Vertical gesture, which is the 3-finger gesture, and making sure that your Snap to is also on so that it snaps to the top surface of your work surface. Okay, so that's in there. I'm just going to quickly turn it around, and I'll just move it here. I won't adjust it yet because what I want to do is I want to complete one layout first so that I can duplicate it and rotate it into the other layout. Okay, so this is how you can quickly populate your project with KOE catalog items. I'm going to just work on one desk area first, and then we'll continue on for the next few. All right, so what I want to add now is a telephone, and these are my top 5. I like to pick a computer, a telephone. I like to use some type of accessory like a red mug, a plant, and a person. So those are my top 5 that I actually go through. So right now I'm going to go ahead and pick my telephone. Let's go and find that. There it is. And let's now drag it onto the scene and just quickly rotate that as well. That looks like it needs to be raised. There we go. Okay. Now, the next item I want to add is an accessory, which is my nice bright red mug. We'll add that to the scene. And again, looks like we have to raise it to the surface. Okay. Next, I'm going to go into my plants. And I'm going to go find my number 1 plant, which is my ficus. Oh, and I lost it. Where did it go? There we go. And I'm going to add that just over here. Okay. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and pick a person. And I like to use Ken. He's PM9. For some reason, he fits every chair from every manufacturer. And he always looks like he's busy at work. So he's a great option to use. In this case, you might have to turn off your snap to. Go into plan view and adjust him in the seat. Okay. If we go back to 3D view, I can see Ken is sitting in there. What I like to do is tap on select, tap on the chair, and you can see right now the chair is part of an overall grouping, so we'll need to ungroup that first. Okay, let's ungroup that one more time. And now we can go into select, so I can add Ken, and now I'm going to group Ken and the chair together. That way, whenever I move the chair, I'm also moving the person. So in this case, I can move him closer to the desk. And now I can go into plan view, and I can now adjust all my items. I already have snap to off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly adjust all my items because I already know that I've adjusted them to fit on the work surface so that I can quickly see and validate that that looks pretty good to me. All right. So now what I want to do is tap on select one more time, select all my items, including Ken, and group them together. Okay. Just make sure you turn off your select action after so that you don't select any more items. Here I'm going to go ahead and tap on this chair. I'm going to remove it. And the reason why is because I'm going to duplicate Ken on this side. May have to do a little bit of adjustment. Once you're in there, I can go ahead and ungroup, and then I can quickly adjust my items to fit the scene properly. Okay. Next thing I want to do is duplicate this tree, this ficus, and just place it on the opposite side there. So now I have one layout created. What I can do is I can now quickly select all my items again. I think I have it all there. Group those together, duplicate it one more time, rotate it, and now what I'm going to do is go on to the other side. I'll have to ungroup this layout as well. And now I can remove those chairs so that I can add my KOE items to the scene. Okay, so you'll have to actually utilize the camera option going in and out from plan view to 3D view just to make sure that everything is adjusted and everything looks correct. Again, you can quickly validate that once you're complete, and that looks perfectly fine to me. Now remember, these are my top 5 items that I like to use whenever I'm client-facing. You can see it literally took me anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes to actually add them. It would probably take me even a lesser time as I wouldn't be explaining this to my client. But in this case, you can see how quickly I was able to populate my project. Okay, so those are all things that you need to consider whenever you're working on these projects. Is what's going to actually help you close that sale quicker. So you have the option of adding your environments, and you have the option of adding KOE catalog items, just as I have here. Let's go ahead and create a quick rendering of that. And then once you get used to all this, you can even have your go-to sample environment. Now, the go-to sample environment may differ when depending on the scale that you use and depending on the size of the actual layout. So it's not that easy to simply use one of the environments unless you don't scale it. Then as long as you know that it fits within a certain grid size, then you're good to go. So it's always good to explore all the different options, understanding what works with the different layout sizes as well. So here you can see that I have a KOE catalog item. And the reason why I wanted to show you the environment first is because now if I tap on photo view, that also includes the KOE catalog items. It doesn't change the position how I last left it. So I now have my items positioned according to the actual layout. Okay. Again, I can create a quick rendering of this. And once that's done, just as I did before, I can go into my iPad photo editor and I can cut that into the size that I want. Now, I won't be able to add it to the estimation. However, I can send that to my client anytime I want. And there you go. Let's export that to my photo library. And now let's go to the photo library. Here's that wonderful rendering we just created. And let's now cut this to size. And there we go. Tap on done. And that's now completed. So once that's done, what I can do is, again, I can go back into my share icon here where I can send out a quick estimation. Here it's just going to prompt to save. We can now change this to the kid's office. And then let's go ahead and pick one of those wonderful renderings. Okay, you have a few to choose from. As you can see, these are all the renderings that we've created since the beginning. And I'm going to go ahead and pick one that makes sense for me. I want to show my client this one. And then I can go in and fill in all the details that I want. There you have it. There's my quick estimation that I can send out to my client. And that's pretty much it. We've now shown you what you need to do when you're client-facing, the tips and tricks that will make you more efficient when you're working on these projects, especially when you're client-facing, to really help you close that sale. Okay, so this concludes our short series. So go out and practice those new skills. Now, if you've missed the last few webinars, as Julia has mentioned, you can visit our Knowledge Center to find them there.